We're almost 4 full weeks into March 2026. I got my Blue Jays jersey on because it is opening day. If you want a prediction for what is going to happen during the Blue Jays season, stick with me right to the end of the video. But I know you're here for the real estate stats. And today we're trying to answer the question, is the market starting to turn around? Are we seeing some life in the spring market? The way I'm going to break this down for you is we're going to look at sales year to date. We're going to look at sales just in March across Freehold and condo properties. We're going to take a look at new listings to try and give us an idea as to how many sellers are coming to market in early 2026. Then I'm going to touch on an interesting trend when it comes to condos, leases versus sales, something that I did share over on Twitter this week, as well as touching on median sale prices. So stick with me for all that through this video. I want to remind you that this is going to be a GTA-wide breakdown. I'm not going market by market. So if you want a regional breakdown or a breakdown of the town you live in, all my information is down in the description of this video. Please reach out and I'm happy to put together a kind of custom tailored report to the information that you're looking into, because people don't want to listen to me ramble for 30 minutes. I'm already rambling right now. Let's get into the numbers a little bit. Here's some trends that I shared on Twitter this week. It's my Monday months of inventory that I put together every single Monday to keep you up to date as to what is happening with the market. For the second straight week, we're actually seeing months of inventory tighter in 2026 than we saw back in 2025. So my most recent reading was 4.75. This is in balanced territory, still favoring buyers slightly. Last year, we were up at 5.38 months of inventory. The two variables you look at to calculate months of inventory are active listings and the rate of sales. So first, what is happening with active listings? You can see that from the bottom, which was right at the beginning of January. It's been a much more gradual climb to where we were at, just 21,586 active listings available for sale as of the start of this week. It was a much more rapid climb from a lower low. You know, we started the year in 2025 at around 15,000 active listings, and that jumped all the way up to 23,916 active listings by March 24th of 2025. So again, we're about 2,400 active listings shy of where we were at this point last year. Now, that alone speaks a lot to why months of inventory is tighter in today's market. You know, less active listings means a tighter market in general, unless sales have cratered. So what is happening with the 30-day rate of sales? This might be a bit of a spoiler for the rest of the video, but for 2 straight weeks now, we have seen the 30-day rate of sales outperform. You know, there's been more activity the last 2 weeks than we saw back in 2025. So the 30-day period prior to March 23rd, we saw 4,547 reported sales across the GTA. The 30 days prior to the 24th of March 2025, we saw 4,442 sales reported. You can see the difference in these two lines is that we actually did see sales, the rate of sales at least, step back for a couple weeks. This would have been your family day long weekend. This would have been March break of last year, seeing things slow down. In 2026, we have not seen a week over week drop in the 30-day rate of sales. Something that's pretty surprising, because I think economically and like geopolitically, it seems a little more uncertain this year than we were a year ago. But buyers, they're not like forging through and like lighting the world on fire right now, but there's definitely been more activity in 2026, at least for the last couple of weeks, than we saw in 2025. Now, why do I say the last couple of weeks? And it's because year to date, we are still at a slower pace in terms of sales, total sales, than we were in 2025. When we look at freehold properties, this is the first 12 weeks of 2026. We've had 6,780 sales reported. That is just over 300 sales shy of where we were last year at this time, where there were 7,090 sales reported. So 2025 was the slowest year in probably history across the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, GTA Real Estate. The setup through 12 weeks would tell us that it's going to be another slow year in 2026, considering we're coming in shy. I went back to 2018, 2019, because these are the last two kind of normal markets that we saw with no crazy run-ups, coming off the back of that 2017 correction prior to the 2020 run-up. So again, well shy of sales totals that we were even seeing back in 2018 and 2019. The condo market's a similar story. Again, slowest year that we've seen was last year. We have 4,082 sales reported on the condo side across the GTA through 12 weeks of March. Last year, that was up at 4,551 reported sales. So a drop of almost 500 sales in those first 12 weeks. March is looking like it may be a little bit of a turning point. And again, not world on fire turning point, but through the first 3 full weeks of March, we saw 2,143 sales reported on the Freehold side, whereas in 2025, it was 2,034 Freehold sales reported. So a bit of a turning around, maybe a 5% increase from where we were last year at this time on the Freehold side, at least. Not, again, signs of crazy life. Like, you're not just putting a sign up and it's selling anymore. We're still seeing days on market up from where they were, but we may start to see sales outpace 2025. And if my prediction that I made at the beginning of the year, saying that there was no way 2026 was going to be slower than 2025, if that prediction is to come true, this will be the turning point. And, I'm not hoping this happens, but if I'm going to be correct, we're going to see sales continue to outpace 2025 from here on out. Condos are a little bit of a different story here. We saw 1,218 reported sales through the first 3 weeks of March. Last year, that number was 1,225. So let's call that flat. It's only 7 sales less. This trend, we may see condos pick up relative to last year as well. Bottom line, much slower than any year prior, and same as on the Freehold side. We're much slower than we saw in even 2023, which was the previous slowest year. A quick note on those condos and this interesting trend that I was talking about. I want to look at the first 12 weeks of 2026 compared to the first 12 weeks of every year going back to 2018. And we're going to look at leases versus sales. So leases is the red line, sales is the blue line. Before 2022, these lines shadowed each other pretty well. It was always a little more popular to rent a condo in the city. The rental market was a little more active than the resale market. But since 2022, since the kind of rate hiking cycle started, since this big correction started, interest in the resale market has really fallen off a cliff through those first 12 weeks of the year. Whereas we saw this massive divergence, people going to lease properties as opposed to purchasing. So this tells us 2 things. First off, buyers are sitting on the sidelines and they'd rather rent because the spread between what it costs to carry a purchase is huge compared to what it costs to rent a property. And we're also seeing sellers, investors not being happy with the numbers they are being offered. So they're opting to go to the rental market, find a tenant for a little bit of time until things maybe pick up. Like, who knows what that looks like, how long that's going to drag out for. But the appetite for rentals is much higher right now. It's the biggest spread that we've seen at any given time between rentals and resale right now. We're fresh off the news that Ontario has kind of given 100% HST rebate on new home sales up to $1 million. Will this have an impact on the condo market? Potentially. I don't know enough to close this gap because it is such a meaningful gap at this point in time. But clearly, the government is siding maybe with developers and pre-construction right now in an attempt to get people to purchase pre-construction as opposed to getting into the resale market right now. That's the sales story. What about the kind of supply side story? We've already talked about active inventory being down. What about new listings? What does that trend look like? So through 12 weeks on the Freehold side, we've seen 18,851 new listings come to market across the GTA. That is down from just over 22,000 in 2025, but it is up from our numbers in 2024, where we saw about 17,800 in 2024 and 14,600 or so in 2023. So new listings numbers are kind of even below our 8-year, 9-year average going back to 2018. People, we saw kind of more appetite to bring properties to market early in the year. That was a trend that was increasing from 23 to 25. 2026 has seen a pullback on the Freehold side. On the condo side, it's a little bit of a different story. We did see a pullback from 2025, where there were just over 17,000 new listings that came to market. In 2026, that number is just shy of 14,000, right on par with where we were at in kind of 2024, below where we were at in 2021 and 2022, but well above that stretch from 2018 to 2020 and those 2023 numbers. If we use sales and new listings to paint an entire picture, you get your sales to new listings ratio. We're going to look at this through the first 3 weeks of March, looking at those few weeks in isolation. On the Freehold side, we're up at closer to balanced market. We're still technically in a buyer's market by this metric. If it's below 0.4, that is still buyer's market territory. It is a tighter market than we saw in 2025 when the Freehold market was up at around 0.3. It's pretty similar to where we were at in 2018, that kind of 0.39 buyer's market approaching balanced territory. It's a stronger buyer's market on the condo side of things. That ratio is down at 0.31 or so, still up from where we were last year at this time when it was 0.24, that ratio. but well below any year prior. You know, the condo market ran relatively hot to the freehold market even during those correcting years, up closer to 0.6 and then jumped up to almost 0.73 back at the height of the condo market in 2021 before things started to cool off. So again, this I would classify as a stronger buyer's market than the freehold market at this point in time. One more reminder before we get into price action. Let me know if you want regional breakdowns for any of the numbers that I've covered so far for you. I'm happy to put those together, send them off in an email, or whatever makes the most sense for you. All of my information is down in the description of the video. Before I wrap the video up with my Blue Jays season predictions, we're going to look at those price numbers that I talked about. So first off, looking at the median sale price of a freehold property across the GTA, we're seeing even right now relatively flat, but even a slight dip in those prices according to the Habistat. You know, that median sale price right now is $1,060,000 for a freehold property in the GTA. That was at $1,061,000 last month. If we back it up to March of 2025, we're down about $100,000 from where we were in March 2025, and it was $1,165,000 for the median price. So we're seeing, it almost looks like, looking at this line chart, another step down in prices for 2026, and no crazy jumps in prices like we saw in 2023 when prices really appreciated to May of 2023. It looks like more of a similar pattern to what we saw in 2025 when, you know, that median price for freehold properties actually peaked in February, March before falling off through the rest of the year. So do we see another similar situation where it's a step down in prices through 2026? This is something that we're going to keep our eyes on the freehold side of things. When it comes to condo prices, the drop off that we're seeing so far from February to March seems a little bit more dramatic. And that's why if you're a buyer of a condo right now, yes, there are opportunities out there, but could you benefit from waiting a little bit more? Potentially. We've seen that spread from what consumers are choosing to do. A lot more people are opting to get into rentals at this point in time than the resale market. We're seeing the median sale price of $582,000 right now across the GTA. That's down from $590,000 last month. And if we back it up to March of 2025, that is $637,000 is where it was last year. And again, that was the peak for 2025. So do we continue to see prices fall on the condo side across the GTA? Potentially. If you're making a decision based on this chart as a seller, I'd say there's some urgency to get properties to market right now. If you're a buyer, waiting could be the play, which is why we may continue to see this stalemate, slowing down in activity on the condo side and further price corrections through the rest of the year. To put a bow on this video, let's just recap what we've talked about. So through the first 12 weeks, we're still lagging those sales totals and those new listings totals on the freehold and condo side. There might be a glimmer of hope. I hate to call it hope, but maybe a glimmer of the market picking up a little bit on the freehold side. When you look at the first 3 weeks of March, we'll keep our eyes on that trend. Yes, sales are up relative to where they were last year at this time. Condos are relatively flat. When it comes to those sales to new listings ratios, we are still pretty firmly in buyer's market territory on the condo side, approaching balanced territory on the freehold side. And then when we look at prices, we may have hit the peak for 2026 already. Is it going to be downhill from here? To be determined. On the freehold side, it looks like there's further room to correct on the condo side. If this breakdown has been helpful for you, again, I invite you to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below as to how you see the rest of the year playing out. I'm always interested in your thoughts and your opinions, and also in future video ideas that you have for me. What do you want to see on this channel? What can I put together for you to keep you interested and coming back for these data-driven insights? I have not forgotten about it. The Blue Jays jersey's on and the hat. What is going to happen for the Blue Jays in 2026? I'm calling my shot right now. The Blue Jays will finish the year 93-69. Might not be enough to win the division, but they are going to win the World Series in 2026. Bookmark this video. Like it if you agree with that. Guess that prediction that I have. Make me a very happy boy come October and November of this year, as opposed to the heartbreak that we saw back in 2025. Thanks so much for sticking with me right through to the end of another video. Go Jays go. Until we speak again next time, please stay safe and cheers.